In the 19th century, many Swedes had grown dissatisfied with life in their homeland. Many of them were farmers, and there was a diminishing amount of farmable land in the mother country. Much as the romance of an exotic and distant country attracted the Swedes, they also had a practical reason for trying their luck in America. The United States offered available land, wide-scale employment, religious tolerance, and freedom from mandatory military service. The scarcity of farmable land in Sweden became a crisis in the 19th century. As the population grew, there was less space to accommodate new farms and farmers. Also, Sweden's natural terrain was often inhospitable to farming, especially because of increasing bad weather. When the United States government opened the Midwestern and Western Plains states for settlement, enormous opportunities awaited the Swedish immigrant. The middle of the 19th century brought thousands of Swedes to American shores. Many took advantage of the relatively cheap fares on cargo ships and traveled as families, compromising a ready-made community in the new frontier. These communities were largely responsible for opening America's heartlands, beginning with western Illinois. Many Swedes came to Illinois in its formative years, including those who followed Reverend Eric Jansen to Bishop Hill, a religious community founded in 1846. At Bishop Hill, all worked together to build and to farm. They also hoped to build a perfect society. The first winter was harsh, but by the spring of 1847, the settlers gazed upon fields of wheat, flax, and corn. By 1857, however, following the death of Eric Jansen, the commune's leaders were persuaded to end the social experiment. Still, the second oldest Swedish settlement in America and the only completely Swedish-built community in America can be visited today as a living example of 19th century Swedish-American life. Another famous destination for Swedish immigrants came to be called Swedetown, an area on the near north side of Chicago. Chicago Swedes built their own wooden houses and churches and contributed their carpentry skill, so the construction of many buildings, including various stores in the city, were built. Famed 19th century evangelist Dwight L. Moody began his ministry in Swedetown. He founded a Sunday school that attracted many children from the Swedish and Norwegian communities. After the 1860s, many Swedish pioneers traveled by train and carriage to unclaimed land tracts across Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Others migrated to Minnesota and other western states. And once land became scarcer in the United States, pioneers trekked north into the Canadian wilderness. In the 20th century, the last major influx of immigrants arrived and lasted until 1929, when the stock market crash and then the Great Depression made economic opportunities no more plentiful in America than in Sweden. From the early days of immigration until about the 1930s, Swedish immigrants placed a high value on fraternal organizations, which at that time was comprised of men only. The majority of these social clubs had the character of a social order with ceremonies and insignia. The establishment of sick and funeral funds was an important element of the membership drives. One of these fraternal organizations, the Vasa Order of America, had numerous lodges in the Chicago area. The original aims of the order was to provide Swedish immigrant members economic and social security in times of sickness and need. Also, the order, named after King Gustav Vasa, acknowledged as the George Washington of Sweden, aimed to educate members in moral, intellectual, and social aspects, thus making them more valued representatives of Sweden. Over the years, there were many changes in the order, opening membership to women, as well as other nationalities than Scandinavian. Vasa came to be, and is today, more and more a keeper of Swedish traditions and culture. Today, most of the focus is on celebrating cultural traditions such as special holidays, food, dress, language, and music. The Austin Lodge, meeting on the north side of Chicago, continues to be a standard bearer for promotion and celebration of the Scandinavian culture and history. Though the original Swede town no longer has a large Scandinavian population, there is still a vibrant remnant of the early Swedish neighborhoods. This is Andersonville, which, by the way, is no longer primarily Scandinavian as in times past. There are many cultural icons, such as the Swedish Museum of America on North Clark Street. There are still many Swedish bakeries and restaurants serving Scandinavian delicacies. The Andersonville Chamber of Commerce has a website which features links to arts and entertainment, dining, health and wellness centers, shopping, and other venues, including special events that celebrate the Scandinavian culture. Today, the early pioneers have long passed on, but their history and traditions live on in the city of Chicago, and notably the Vasa Order of America, Austin Lodge, which has brought you this presentation. For more information about becoming a member, send an email to swedishclub@inbox.com. That's swedishclub@inbox.com.